So, good day everyone. So today po, we are going to present our report about CEDAW and the Philippine Magna Carta of Women, otherwise known as the Republic Act 9710 of 2009. So, basically, isa po itong batas na kung saan pinagtitibay po nito ang Women's Human Rights Law at mga policies that promote and protect women's rights, lalong-lalo na po sa ating mga marginalized sectors. So, sino-sino nga po ba ang mga nasa marginalized sectors po ng ating bansa? So, unang-una na po dyan ang ating mga IPs or indigenous people, kasama na po ang ating mga solo parents, urban poor, kasama na din po ang ating mga senior citizen, children workers at marami pang iba. At binubuo rin ng Magna Carta of Women ng 47 sections that establish mechanisms to ensure equal rights and opportunities para po sa ating mga kababaihan at kalalakihan upang maiwasan ang diskriminasyon in any gender base at nagsisilbing protekta at magpopromote ng karapatan para sa bawat babaeng Pilipino. So, also this act was passed by the Senate and the House of Representatives on May 19, 2009 at pinirmahan po ito ng dating Pangulong Gloria Macapagal Arroyo noong August 14, 2009. So, pero ano nga po ba ang kahalaga nito lalo na po sa panahon natin ngayon? Well, marami na pong violence against women cases ang hindi na po nabibigyang pansin ng ating bansa na nagiging dahilan sa mga biktima ng pagtatago po ng kanilang saloobin, ng kanilang mga experiences at takot po na maaari po silang husgahan ng iba. So, kaya po nabuo ang Magna Carta of Women ay para ma-address ang lahat ng forms of female abuse o diskriminasyon sa mga kababaihan, inequality o di pagkapantay-pantay sa larangan po ng ekonomiya, sosyo-kultural at politika. So, mahalaga pong magkaroon po ng kaalaman tungkol po sa batas na ito upang maipagtanggol po nila ang kanilang sarili at malaman kung ano nga ba ay yung mga various types of abuse at malaman kung sila po ba yung inaabuso, naabuso at nakaabuso na po ng kanilang kapwa o di kaya upang magamit nila ang equal access rights po and opportunities po sa ating bansa. So, this report aims to explore the key elements of both CEDAW and the Philippine Magna Carta of Women. So, the topic outlines of our report are declaration of policy, what Philippine Magna Carta of Women is, defining terms, principles of human rights, and the rights and duties related to women's empowerment. So, through this examination, we will also delve into the institutionalized mechanisms that support these rights and their implementation in the Philippine context. What is RA 9710? Republic Act 9710 or the Magna Carta of Women is a landmark legislation in the Philippines aimed at promoting and protecting the rights of women. Signed into law on August 14, 2009, RA 9710 represents the Philippine government's commitment to the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, also known as CEDAW, an international treaty adopted by the United Nations to eliminate discrimination against women globally. So, the Magna Carta of Women serves as the Philippine national framework that translates and operationalizes the CEDAW provisions at the local level, ensuring that women's human rights are recognized, protected, and fulfilled within the context of the Philippines. In fact, the law's passage was part of the country's pledge to the CEDAW Committee during its 36th session in 2006, as well as the UN Human Rights Council's Universal Periodic Review in 2009. So, the Magna Carta is a comprehensive women's human rights law. It designs to eliminate all forms of discrimination against women, particularly in areas such as employment, healthcare, education, and political participations. So, it focuses not only on the elimination of gender-based violence, but also on the promotion of economic, social, and cultural rights for women, especially those from marginalized sectors such as indigenous women, rural women, and women with disabilities. So, through the Magna Carta of Women, the Philippine government acknowledges the importance of addressing both the structural and cultural barriers that hinder women's empowerment. So, it provides a robust legal framework to ensure the equality of women and their full participation in the development of the nation. So ultimately, promoting their dignity, autonomy, and well-being. So in essence, the Magna Carta of Women is a national reflection of the Philippines' commitment to CEDAW, setting clear legal standards for the recognition, protection, and promotion of women's rights in the country.
So this is the picture of signing of Magna Carta of Women. So on August 14, 2009, President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo signed into the Magna Carta of Women, also known as the Republic Act 9710.
In this part, we're going to discuss what is Declaration of Policy and its importance in promoting women's rights. The Declaration of Policy emphasizes the importance of promoting women's rights and equality in the Philippines, and it aligns with both international standards and local laws. The bullets on your screen is a breakdown of each part. First one affirms the role of women in nation building. The policy recognizes that women play a crucial part in the growth and development of the country. This affirmation means that women's contributions are valued as essential to achieving national goals. The second bullet ensures substantive equality among men and women. This statement goes beyond formal equality where men and women are treated the same. To ensure that both genders have equal access to opportunities and ensure it practice, it means that the policy is committed to addressing underlying inequalities that may prevent women from fully participating in society. The third bullet affirms women's rights as human rights. This is a clear declaration that women's rights are fundamental rights, integral to human dignity and freedoms. By making this affirmation, the policy aligns with the broader global perspective that women's rights cannot be separated from the Universal Human Rights Agenda. The fourth bullet condemns discrimination against women in line with CEDAW. CEDAW, or the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. It is an international agreement aimed at ending discrimination against women worldwide. By condemning discrimination, this policy commits the Philippines to uphold CEDAW and other relevant international standards, making sure that Philippine laws reflect these principles. The fifth bullet reaffirms the right of women to participate in all areas of policy and program development. Women are given with the right to be involved in the creation, planning, evaluation, and policies, programs, and services that impact their lives. This means they should have a voice in decisions that affect them, promoting a more inclusive and representative policy-making process. In summary, the Declaration policy aims to secure a more equitable society by reinforcing the importance of women's rights and ensuring their participation in the country's development. It reflects a strong commitment to both national and international standards on women's rights.
So next slide po, let's have the definition of terms. So discrimination against women. Any gender-based distinction, exclusion, or restriction which has the effect or purpose of impairing or nullifying the recognition, enjoyment, or exercise by women, irrespective of their marital status, on the basis of equality of men and women, human rights and fundamental freedoms in the political, economic, social, cultural, civil, or any other field. So, ang discrimination against women po, ito po ay tumutukoy sa mga gawain o patakaran na nagdudulot ng hindi pagkakapantay-pantay sa kababaihan tulad ng mga batas o polisiya na hindi nagbibigay ng parehong mga karapatan at oportunidad sa mga babae at lalaki at nakakaapekto sa kanilang kakayahang makilahok at magtagumpay sa iba't ibang aspeto po ng buhay. So, next is any act or omission, including by law, policy, administrative measure, or practice that directly or indirectly excludes or restricts women in the recognition and promotion of their rights and their access to enjoyment of opportunities, benefits, or privileges. So, ang diskriminasyon lamang sa kababaihan ay maaaring mangyari sa pamamagitan ng mga aksyon o polisiya pati na rin sa mga administratibong hakbang na naglilimita o nag-aalis ng karapatan ng mga kababaihan. So, for example, ito ay maaaring mga batas o practice na nagtatanging sa mga babae. So, binabawasan ng kanilang mga pagkakataon o benepisyo at nagpapahirap sa kanilang pag-access sa mga oportunidad na dapat ay pantay-pantay para sa lahat. Next, a measure or practice of general application that fails or provide for mechanisms, sex, or gender-based disadvantages or limitations of women. So, discrimination compounded by or intersecting with other grounds, status, or conditions such as ethnicity, age, poverty, or religion. So, ang diskriminasyon laban sa kababaihan ay nagiging mas matindi kapag ito ay pinapalala ng iba pang mga salik, tulad po ng lahi, edad, o kalagayan sa buhay. So, halimbawa na lamang ang mga kababaihan na kabilang sa mga minorya o mahirap ay mas malaki ang posibilidad na makaranas ng dobleng diskriminasyon. Kaya nagiging mas mahirap para sa kanila ang magkaroon po ng pantay na oportunidad at karapatan. So, next po, let's have the women empowerment. It refers to the provision, availability, and accessibility of opportunities, services, and observance of human rights which enable women to actively participate and contribute to the political, economic, social, and cultural development of the nation, as well as those which shall provide them equal access to ownership, management, and control of production and of material and informational resources, and benefits in the family, community, and society. So, ang women empowerment po, ito po ay ang pagkakaroon po ng mga babae ng mga oportunidad na dati-dati nakalaan lamang po sa mga lalaki. So, discrimination against women. It refers to any gender-based distinction, exclusion, or restriction which has the effect or purpose of impairing or nullifying the recognition, enjoyment, or exercise by women, irrespective of their marital status, on a basis of equality of men and women, of human rights and fundamental freedoms in the political, economic, social, cultural, civil, or any other field. So, ang diskriminasyon laban sa kababaihan ay nangyayari kapag ang mga babae ay tinatanggalan o nililimitahan po sa kanilang mga karapatan at oportunidad dahil lamang sa kanilang kasarian. So, ito ay nagiging hadlang sa kanilang pantay na pag-access sa mga benepisyo at kalayaan sa iba't ibang aspeto po ng buhay tulad ng politika, ekonomiya, at lipunan. So, next is marginalization. It refers to a condition where a whole category of people is excluded from useful and meaningful participation in political, economic, social, and cultural life. So, ang marginalization po ay nangyayari kapag ang isang grupo ng tao ay dahil sa kanilang katayuan, lahi, relihiyon, o iba pang salik ay hindi nabibigyan ng pagkakataon na makilahok o makinabang sa mga aktibidad at desisyon na may kinalaman sa kanilang komunidad o lipunan. Ang kanilang mga karapatan at boses ay nababaliwala, kaya't nahihirapan silang makatawid sa mga pangunahing aspeto ng buhay. So, next is the marginalized. It refers to the basic, disadvantaged, or vulnerable persons or groups who are mostly living in poverty and have little or no access to land and other resources. So, basic social and economic services such as healthcare, education, water and sanitation, employment, and livelihood opportunities, housing, social security, physical infrastructure, and the justice system. So, ang marginalized po na tao ay nahihirapan dahil sa kakulangan ng mga oportunidad at serbisyo, kaya't nahihirapan silang umangat sa buhay at makilahok ng pantay-pantay sa lipunan. Next is gender equality. It refers to a principle asserting the equality of men, women, and their right to enjoy equal conditions. So, ang gender equality ay nangangahulugang walang diskriminasyon batay sa kasarian at ang mga lalaki at babae ay may pantay na pagkakataon sa lahat ng aspeto ng buhay tulad po ng trabaho, edukasyon at iba pang mga karapatan at benepisyo sa lipunan. Next is gender equity. It refers to the policies, instruments, programs, and services and actions that address disadvantaged position of women in society by providing equal treatment and affirmative action. So, ang mahakbang po na ito ay naglalayong makabuti ang kalagayan ng mga kababaihan, lalo na ang mga nasa disadvantaged na posisyon. So, sa pamamagitan ng mga espesyal na patakaran o programa na nagsusulong ng kanilang karapatan at pantay na oportunidad sa lipunan at ekonomiya. Next is gender mainstream. It refers to the strategy for making women's as well as men's concerns and experiences an integral dimension of the design, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of policies and programs in political, economic, and societal spheres so that both the women and men benefit equally and inequality is not perpetuated. So, ang gender mainstreaming po, ito po ay isang estratehiya ng pamahalaan upang maalis ang diskriminasyon laban sa kababaihan upang masiguro ang pagkakapantay-pantay ng mga babae at lalaki sa lahat po ng oras. And lastly po is the violence against women. It refers to any act of gender-based violence that result in or likely to result in physical, sexual, or psychological harm or suffering to women. So, ang violence against women ay anumang aksyon o pangyayari na naglalayong saktan ng kababaihan, kabilang ang pananakit, pang-aabuso o pagpapahirap na may kaugnayan sa kanilang kasarian. So, ang ganitong uri ng karahasan ay nagdudulot po ng matinding epekto sa physical, emotional at mental na kalagayan ng mga babae. So, ayun lamang po for the definition of terms.
Principles of Human Rights and Empowerment. Human Rights of Women. All rights in the Constitution and those rights recognized under the international instruments that is signed and ratified by the Philippines in consonance with the Philippine law shall be the rights of women under the MCF or the Muslim Charities Forum. To simplify it, human rights of women, it is all about rights or mga batas na nakasulat sa Constitution that protects women. Next, the principles of human rights and empowerment serve as a foundation for a fair, inclusive, and just society. There are 11 principles of human rights. Number 1 is yung protection from violence. Here naman, it ensures that all individuals, especially women and children, are free from physical, emotional, and psychological harm. Number 2, protection and security in times of disaster and calamities. It ensures the safety and rights of all human, especially women and children in times of disaster and calamities. So dito mas inuuna yung kapakanan ng mga babae, mga bata, kasi nga sila yung mas nangangailangan ng protection or tulong. Sa number 3 naman, participation and representation. Dito naman, it provides opportunity for all, especially in marginalized group like yung mga indigenous people, PWDs, and other groups na to be involved in decision-making processes and to have their voices represented in governance and policy-making. Number 4, equal treatment before the law. It guarantees fairness and non-discrimination in legal matters like yung sa gender nga ng tao and yung religion nila with equal access to justice for everyone. And number 5, equal access and elimination of discrimination and integration. It ensures that all individuals have the same opportunities to receive an education free from any form of discrimination based on gender, race, religion, or economic status. And number 6 is scholarships and trainings. Here naman, it provides equal opportunities for advancement and development, enabling individuals to gain skills and knowledge without discrimination. And number 7, women in sports and military. It promotes women's active participation and equal representation in traditionally male-dominated areas such as sports and military service. So dito is pakikilahok ng mga kababaihan sa sports and representing themselves na kaya din nilang gawin ang mga ginagawa ng mga lalaki tulad nga sa military service. Number 8, non-discriminatory and non-derogatory portrayal in media and film. Dito naman sa number 8 is it ensures that media portrayals avoid stereotypes and discrimination, promoting a balanced and fair representation of all groups. Wala silang pinapanigan ng mga ganon. And sa number 9, rights to health. Ito naman is it guarantees access to healthcare services without discrimination, with special attention to the needs of women, children, and other vulnerable groups. And number 10, special leave benefits. Dito naman is provides leave policies that accommodate the unique needs of individuals such as maternity leave for women or paternity leave for men to support work-life balance. And last, number 11, equal rights in all matters relating to marriage and family. Here naman is it ensures that all individuals, regardless of gender or sexual orientation, have equal rights in family-related legal matters such as marriage, adoption, and inheritance. These principles are vital in building a society that respects, protects, and fulfills the rights of all individuals, promoting empowerment and equality for a thriving and inclusive world. And that's my report. Next reporter po.
So, I will discuss the duties related to the human rights of women. The state, private sector, society in general, and all individuals shall contribute to the recognition, respect, and promotion of the human rights of women defined and guaranteed under this act. Or even simpler, lahat tayo ay dapat magtulungan para protektahan at suportahan ang karapatan ng mga kababaihan. So next is the Section 5, the state as the primary duty bearer. So as the main protector, the state must not discriminate against women or violate their rights, protect women from discrimination, rights violations by companies, organizations, or individuals, promote and fulfill women's rights in all areas including equal treatment or no discrimination. So, in short, the state must respect, protect, and promote women's rights and ensuring equality and non-discrimination. This is Section 6, Duties of State Agencies and Instrumentalities. So, this section emphasizes that the state's duties to protect women's human rights extend to all government agencies like national, regional, and local, government offices, government-owned and controlled corporations, instrumentalities, example, the commissions and councils. So these entities must respect and promote women's human rights, follow the Constitution, laws, policies, and guidelines, and perform specific duties defined by laws and policies. Next is Section 7, Supplementary Effect. So this section ensures that this chapter supports and adds to other provisions in the Act. It integrates with laws guaranteeing specific women's rights, and it defines rules and responsibilities of state agencies. It requires specific conduct from state organs. So, in essence, this section ensures that all government agencies prioritize women's human rights. Laws and policies are harmonized to protect women's rights. State agencies have clear rules and responsibilities, and women's rights are comprehensively protected and promoted. So next is right and empowerment of marginalized sector. So right of marginalized women. Marginalized women are guaranteed the following rights under existing laws and acts. So first is civil and political rights, equality, non-discrimination, and equal protection under the law. So next is food security and productive resources, access to nutritious food, land, and resources for livelihood. Third is right to housing, safe and decent housing, free from violence and discrimination. Fourth is decent work, fair labor practices, equal pay, and safe working conditions. Fifth is livelihood, credit, capital, and technology, access to resources, loans, and training for economic empowerment. Sixth is education and training, equal access to quality education and skills training. 7th is representation and participation, involvement in decision-making processes and leadership positions. Next is right to information, access to relevant information and data for informed decision-making. Next is social protection, protection from violence, abuse, and exploitation. Next is cultural identity and integrity, recognition and preservation of cultural heritage and traditions. Last is peace and development, participation in peace development. Next is women in especially difficult circumstances, or WEDC. WEDC refers to women na naka-experience ng abuse, severe trauma, or exploitation, including victims of trafficking, survivors of sexual and physical abuse, legal recruitment, prostitution, armed conflict, or women in detention. So to support services for WEDC to address their specific needs, WEDC require protection and safety, so temporary and protective custody, sinisecure din nila yung shelter and housing. Next is the health and wellness. Meron din medical and dental services, psychiatric evaluation and counseling, and access to healthcare and therapy. So in economic empowerment, productivity, skills, capability building, for example, is the vocational training, livelihood assistance, for example, is the entrepreneurship support, job placement and employment opportunities, and last is financial assistance, like scholarships. Next is legal support, legal services and representation, assistance with legal documentation and processes. Next is social support, transportation assistance, access to education and training, and social integration and community re-entry programs. So the importance of support services, it ensures the survivors' safety and well-being, and promoting physical and emotional healing, and empowering women to regain control over their lives, and facilitating social and economic reintegration, and breaking cycles of violence and abuse. So that's all, and thank you.
In this topic, we'll talk about institutional mechanism. The first one is the gender mainstreaming. Here in section 36 mandates gender mainstreaming as a key strategy to promote gender equality and support the implementation of the Magna Carta of Women. Gender mainstreaming requires government agencies and local government units to integrate gender considerations into their systems, policies, and programs to eliminate discrimination and protect women's rights. So for the key components of gender mainstreaming, the first one is planning, budgeting, monitoring, and evaluation for GAD. So here, each government agency must conduct a gender audit to assess its policies, programs, and services for gender responsiveness. This includes generating and reviewing sex disaggregated data, conducting gender analysis, and consulting with the gender advocates. Agency must dedicate at least 5% of their total budget to gender development or GAD initiatives. For agencies receiving official development assistance, 5 to 30% of those funds must support gender-responsive programs. The Commission on Audit, or COA, oversees the use of the GAD budget to ensure funds are being effectively used to address gender issues. GAD spending is also evaluated based on its influence on gender-responsive implementation across the agency's full budget. The second one is local government GAD code. So here, LGUs are encouraged to pass a GAD code that identifies and addresses local gender issues. This code acts as a basis for developing gender-responsive projects and initiatives tailored to the needs of women in the community. The third one is temporary gender equity measures. So in here, departments and agencies are encouraged to include temporary measures if needed to support gender equity, which could involve dedicated programs, projects, or policies that bridge existing gender gaps. The fourth one is incorporation into key plans. Gender concerns must be integrated into the national plans, such as the medium-term Philippine Development Plan, as well as the annual plans of all departments and agencies and local government plans. This ensures that gender issues are addressed at every level of government planning. The fifth one is GAD Focal Point System, or the GFP. In here, every department and LGU must establish or strengthen a GAD Focal Point System to drive the gender mainstreaming efforts. This system includes leadership and a technical working group that coordinates gender-related initiatives and monitors progress. GFP responsibilities are incorporated into members' performance evaluations to ensure accountability. The last one is GAD database. So in here, each department and LGU must develop and maintain a GAD database containing gender statistics and sex disaggregated data. This database supports gender analysis and evidence-based decision-making to address women's needs and ensure gender-sensitive planning and policy making. For example, a state university conducts a gender audit and finds that the female students face issues related to harassment and limited access to certain academic opportunities. To address this, the university sets aside 5% of its budget for a GAD program. This program includes awareness campaigns on gender rights, training for the faculty on gender sensitivity, and support services for students who have experienced harassment. The University GAD Focal Point System, headed by a senior administrator, monitors these initiatives, tracks outcomes, and provide regular reports to ensure the program's success. Additionally, the university contributes to the GAD database by collecting data on issues such as gender-based harassment cases and the enrollment of female students in various programs. This data is reviewed and used to update and improve GAD programs. The university's GAD initiatives are aligned with the medium-term Philippine Development Plan, supporting the government's broader agenda for gender equality. Through these integrated strategies, the university works towards a safer and more inclusive environment for women while fulfilling its obligations under the Magna Carta of Women. So, yung second naman sa institutional mechanism is yung gender focal point officers in Philippine embassies and consulates. Here in Section 37 of the relevant Philippine policy mandates that a gender focal point officer or GFPO be assigned in the consular section of Philippine embassies and consulates abroad. This officer is specifically trained in gender and development, or the GAD, is responsible for addressing and supporting gender-specific concerns of women migrant workers. Their role includes handling issues such as workplace discrimination, abuse, or any gender-based concerns that women may face while working in foreign countries. The GFPO serves as a direct contact for women migrant workers needing support, guidance, or intervention in matters involving gender-related challenges. Their work includes collaborating with attached agencies like the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration and Department of Foreign Affairs. So to ensure that gender-sensitive services are provided effectively. This may involve programs focused on safety, mental health, legal support, or reintegration. For example, if a Filipino domestic worker in the Middle Eastern country experienced abuse from her employer, she can reach out to the GFPO at the nearest Philippine consulate. The GFPO, equipped with the necessary guide training, would understand the sensitivity of situation and could provide assistance by connecting her to legal aid, offering counseling, or coordinating her safe repatriation if needed. This support ensures that her rights and dignity are upheld while addressing her specific needs as a woman migrant worker. The third one is National Commission on the Role of Filipino Women, renamed Philippine Commission on Women. So here in section 38, it outlines the role of the Philippine Commission on Women, or the PCW, formerly the National Commission on the Role of Filipino Women, or the NCRFW. The PCW is designated as the primary policy-making and coordinating body on issues of women and gender equality under the Office of the President. Its primary responsibility is to oversee and monitor the implementation of laws and policies concerning women's rights and gender equality. The PCW has the authority to direct government agencies to report on their implementation of these laws and to respond quickly to any issues related to women and gender equality that arise. Additionally, the PCW works to ensure that all branches of government like executive, legislative, and judicial can integrate gender and development or GAD principles into their operations and policies, influencing their systems and processes to support gender equality. This includes building the capacity of government agencies to implement these laws effectively, training staff, and restructuring as needed with the assistance of the Department of Budget and Management. For example, if the PCW identifies a pattern of gender-based violence cases among migrant workers that is not being adequately addressed by relevant government agencies, it can require those agencies to report their actions and address any gaps in support. The PCW might direct the Department of Labor and Employment, or the DOLE, and the Department of Foreign Affairs, or the DFA, to enhance their support programs for women migrant workers and to provide specific training for their staff on handling these cases. The PCW can also propose adjustments in budgets, staffing, or training to ensure that these agencies are equipped to protect and promote gender equality effectively. Furthermore, the PCW chairperson is tasked with briefing the President during cabinet meetings, ensuring that gender issues are or remain a priority in the national agenda. The last one is Commission on Human Rights. So here in section 39 assigns the Commission on Human Rights or the CHR the role of Gender and Development Ombud to promote and protect women's human rights under this act. In this role, the CHR is responsible for monitoring, developing guidelines, and ensuring compliance with laws that protect women's rights and prevent discrimination. Key responsibilities include collaborating with the Philippine Commission on Women, or the PCW, to create indicators for compliance, assigning a commissioner or the Women's Human Rights Center to oversee programs, and establishing mechanism to facilitate women's access to legal remedies. The CHR can also support women in filing complaints, conducting investigations, and taking legal action against violations of their rights under this act. Furthermore, the CHR can recommend administrative actions to the President or Civil Service Commission if agencies fail to comply with or implement the Act provisions. For example, suppose a group of marginalized women face discrimination in accessing healthcare services due to their socioeconomic status. The CHR, in its role as Gender and Development Ombud, could take an action in several ways. It may collaborate with the PCW to create guidelines ensuring healthcare providers treat all women equally, regardless of status. Additionally, the CHR could designate a commissioner to investigate the government agency responsible for healthcare fails to address these issues. The CHR can also recommend administrative actions to ensure accountability and compliance with the Act.
So that concludes our presentation po. Thank you so much for listening. Bye!